So I wanted to build something a little bit different that had a lot of like heritage and something that was pretty rare. So when I was working at West Coast Choppers, Jesse had this engine hanging on his wall that I always used to like stare at, and he had no information on it. When I got the call for Born Free, I called Jesse and I asked him, I was like, hey, would you be willing to get rid of that motor on the wall? And he said, yeah. And I went up there to get it from him. I got it. It was in a crate full of pieces. So I was kind of determined to figure out the history on this motor. And I found a forum, an old speedway racing forum. They said, does anybody remember that Harley-based MSM motor that Clary Myers had in his speedway bike? That thing really went. But I posted on there saying, hey, I think I have that motor. Can you give me any information on these people? The next day, I get an email from Alan Myers, who's Clary Myers' son in Brisbane, Australia, he's now in his 70s, but he built that motor with his dad when they were 20. So that was a one-of-one motor that him and his dad built as their prototype V-twin motor. And it ended up winning an entire season. It won 15 races in a row. And all the other competitors thought that they had what's called a fat motor, which means it has bigger displacement than what the regulations allow. It's supposed to be 1,000 cc's, and everybody thought it was like a 1,200 or something like that. So they ended up taking the motor out of the bike, they took it apart, and the next morning when they came into the shop to show the officials, the shop had been broken into and the motor was gone. And they never heard about it again for 50 years until I ended up contacting him. Alan, at first, didn't really want anything to do with it, and I was worried that he was going to want the motor back, because I have his stolen motor that he's been missing for 50 years. But he was really cool about it, and he actually ended up remembering like all the specs of the motor while me and my engine builder here were trying to reverse engineer it because we just had it in pieces. Me and my engine builder spent 6 months building this motor, trying to get it to run and everything, make sure everything was fine. And then we cranked it up for the first time and it started right up and it ran. And me and my buddy Jorge drove out there to California. And when we got there, Alan Myers and his wife were already at the show while we were setting up. And he walked up and like immediately started like tearing up and everything, seeing his motor for the first time. And as soon as we got done with the show, it was time to like recoup some money. And I mean, I would have loved to kept that bike, but it deserved to be somewhere cool. So I ended up contacting the Haas Museum in Dallas. It's like the best place it could ever be, and it's going to sit there forever. Bobby says once those bikes go into that museum, they don't come out, not even for shows. So it's in climate controlled. It's got people that maintain it. So it's the best case scenario for me.